Welcome to Grrrl Zine Fair. I'm Lou. I founded Grrrl Zine Fair in 2015, which feels like a million years ago when feminism wasn't cool. It's kind of swung the other way now, and feminism is like super commercialized. So it's really great to be back and doing events, especially these DIY events. Everyone's pitched in. It's amazing. We've got some great collaborators for this fair, including Feminists who are going to lead with the talks. Definitely check out the Zine Fair upstairs and around the sides, and we also have workshops. And the Zine library is downstairs in the basement. It's a nice quiet space where you can chill out and read the stories of thousands of different women, trans, and non-binary people. So yeah, I hope you enjoy the day. It's good to see you all here. Thanks.
Hi, hello, I'm Jo, the director and one of the founders of Feminists, and really excited to be here today. Feminists is a growing grassroots network and movement that believes that feminism is for everybody, and for the future to be equal, it has to be inclusive, intersectional, anti-racist. And that is what our chapters are doing across Europe and recently in the USA. When Lou asked us to curate today, we were really excited because there are so many people in the kind of community activism space that have been really inspiring to us and to our network as it's grown. So for today's event, we wanted to focus on the power of community activism. And we have a keynote speaker followed by a panel on creating change, we'll be diving into like how everyday people can change their communities and therefore change the world. So starting off with a bang, our keynote speaker is Ysabel. India is an activist, content creator, and co-founder of the Speak Up Space. Join me in welcoming India.
Oh, how fun. Hello, everyone. I just want to say, first off, thank you so much to Feminists to Grrrl Zine Fair for organizing this amazing event. I'm so excited to be here, and you all seem like such a lovely bunch of people. This is my first in-person solo talk since September of 2020, so I'm excited, but also really nervous, but bear with me, it's going to be fine. So I am Ysabel, and I am an intersectional feminist activist, changemaker, person who cares. What you call me is kind of up to you. I don't really mind as long as you're nice. My main work focuses on sexual violence and harassment, as well as anti-racism. Now, before I officially begin, I want to kind of preface this with the fact that I am just a 20-year-old sociology student. I don't see myself as the blueprint. I'm just here to kind of talk about my journey and hopefully encourage all of you guys to take action and get involved in whatever way that you feel you can. I think there's kind of this myth that activism has to really look a certain way in order to be impactful, but it can actually be done in so many different ways. Now, my own journey started when I was at school, and it started with something that, in the grand scheme of things, is quite small, but at the time, it meant absolutely everything to me and my Black peers. So, I was 14 years old, and one morning I came into school, and it was announced that my school was adding a new house because they were expanding, they were getting more students. And I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with the concept of a schoolhouse from their own times at school, but just in case anyone isn't, I'm kind of imagine Harry Potter and Hogwarts and how they have Ravenclaw and Slytherin and stuff, except at my school, because we were an all-girls school, they were named after famous influential women from history. And so they wanted us to vote on the name of this new house, and so we were given 5 options of influential women. And in theory, obviously, this was a great idea. We love women. But it was only a great concept until I realized that all of these nominees were white women. And don't get me wrong, I grew up in Bath, I went to school in Bath. If you're familiar with Bath, you'll know that it's a predominantly white city. But there were Black girls at my school. I was one of them. And I thought that it was not fair that we were not being given the opportunity to be represented. And so I decided to protest the nominations. And I went to go and speak with the teachers in charge, and I was like, guys, this is not on, can we change this? And I was completely dismissed. But I wasn't going to take no for an answer. And so I did my favorite thing, and I wrote a passive-aggressive letter to the teachers in charge. My mum raised me well, and I rallied up support from as many students as I possibly could. And after a few days of my kind of small but also mildly traumatizing campaign and backlash from certain staff and also students, it was announced that 2 black women would be added to the lineup, and the next day we had the vote, and I'm really pleased to announce that my school now has a house named after Rosa Parks. And I wanted to tell that story because even after all of this time and all of the things that I have done in between, I think it's one of my proudest achievements. And it serves as an important reminder that change doesn't always happen on the streets. It can happen in your home, in your workplace, in your educational institution, and so on. So don't ever feel as though the work that you're doing and the work you're involved in is insignificant or unimportant. There's a place for everything, and having an impact on even one person is personally a win in my books. So anyway, I'm going to fast forward to 2020. I was involved in a few local campaigns in this time, but I have to say, I don't really want to go over the time I was convinced to do a flash mob at the Bath City Council building. So as I say, fast forward to 2020, specifically May, June time of 2020. And I'm sure you can all remember this period of time. It was very significant. There was a lockdown going on, and it was also the time that the video of George Floyd's murder hit all of our screens. It went viral, and we saw this historic resurgence of Black Lives Matter. And I think so many of us felt as though the options we had to discuss this topic and take action on it was so limited. I know that's certainly how I felt, but I wanted to speak on it, and so I just made an Instagram post about it. And I'd never really spoken properly about race among my majority white peers or even on social media, because frankly, I was scared. At the time, I really thought to myself, my friends having the wrong reaction to me talking about racism and then me then losing those friends was the worst thing that could possibly happen. But it had come to a time where we were in a lockdown, there was a deadly pandemic going on, I was on my gap year, and frankly, I felt as though I had nothing to lose, so I just went for it, and I am so glad that I did. It made me realize that people are actually so much more willing to listen and learn than I'd ever realized, and suddenly I had all these people looking to me to talk about a subject that I'd always felt so unheard on. And I thank the internet and social media for giving me that platform. But while I'm on that subject, I want to remind everyone that social media is not the be-all and end-all. It's a starting point, it's not the Bible. Following people like me should never be the extent of your involvement. But I'm also really not a social media hater. I think it has so many great aspects to it. I found out about so many cool events. I'm sure so many of you found out about this event via social media. I found out about amazing actions, and I've also met so many like-minded people that I never would have otherwise had the opportunity to meet, some of whom are actually in this room. And I actually met one of my best friends online. Phoebes is one of those people who I just instantly connected with because we were so like-minded and passionate about the same things. And realizing this in June of 2020, Phoebes came to me with an idea. This idea was for an online listening and signposting space for survivors of sexual violence, harassment, and anything that correlates. This idea is now known as the Speak Up Space. Co-founding the Speak Up Space is something that I am so incredibly proud of. As a survivor myself, what we do is so important and personal to me. So the way it works is we operate on Instagram and Twitter to give it a kind of comfortable and casual feel. We want it to feel as though you're talking to a friend. We thought the kind of calling and texting services can sometimes feel a little bit daunting and official. And so people write into us, and each time is slightly different. Some people want to go off with their stories straight off the bat, some people want to ask a question, and so on. People just do what they're most comfortable with, because we are all about giving power back to survivors. And then our amazing support team responds accordingly. And we started the Speak Up space because we realized there is such a big gap between experiencing sexual violence and then getting help for it, and we want to bridge that gap. And for so many people, going to the police is too much. They've had a bad experience in the past, or maybe they're like me and they have a distrust of the police. And we just wanted to create neutral ground where people can go and be listened to. And finding the right kind of support is never easy as a quick Google search. Everyone's experiences are so individual and personal, and you can't have a one-size-fits-all approach. And we also realized that some people don't even necessarily need full long-term help after what they've been through. They just want to talk to someone about what's happened. They just want to be validated, and they just want to be believed. I know I felt like that in the past. I just wanted someone to listen to me. And so many people can't tell those closest to them, maybe because they're ashamed, because they're afraid of the way that these people will react. And so having someone neutral reaffirm them can really go a long way. And I want you to remember that you can all be the Speak Up space. You can all be that person that can reaffirm someone and validate them and believe them. The reaction of the person that the survivor first talks to about their experiences can really define a whole lot. And I think the Speak Up space is also a really good example of how you can make a difference from home. I think it's ableist to assume that everyone's able to go outside and organize in a certain way, especially with this COVID-19 pandemic still going on, regardless of what the government may say. And we do hope to turn the Speak Up space into a physical space at some point, but right now we operate without any funding. It's just us and our team of volunteers who just do this because they care. And that's all you really need to make something like this work, is people who care. And that's not to say that all of this hasn't been difficult and a struggle, and that the stuff you guys are involved in and will get involved in won't be hard. It rarely is. And I do a lot of work and create a lot of content around issues that directly affect me, issues that have and continue to be traumatic for me. And when you're doing this, it's so easy to get burnt out. I have to be completely honest about that. And so I encourage every single one of you to take breaks. And this is something that I'm still learning. I'm the type of person that loves to say yes to everything, and I want to miss out on an opportunity, and I just want to say yes to everything. I'm that type of person, but sometimes I just need to learn to say no. And my old manager at my old retail job said something to me that has really stuck with me, and I say it all the time, and that is rest to work, not work to rest. You have to put yourself first. What she said is so true, because you can't effectively help other people if you are not well looked after yourself. And never underestimate the power of self-care. I think the meaning of self-care has certainly been lost in capitalism and consumerism culture. I think we're encouraged to buy things in order to look after ourselves, when in reality, self-care can be eating 3 meals a day, getting enough sleep, and making sure you switch off your work phone at the end of the day. And I know this probably seems like a little bit of a tangent, but when I talk about this subject, I feel as though I owe it to people to be honest about the impacts that it can have on you and your life, both positive and negative. But regardless of those negative aspects, I still wake up every day and want to do this. I still wake up and I love going to events like this, and I wouldn't be able to do this if I didn't have passion, and everything I was doing wasn't coming from a place of passion. And I'm sure that so many of you in this room come from really different walks of life, but we all have one common interest, and I'm assuming that's feminism, right? We want to make things better for people affected by misogyny. And I get asked a lot about how to get involved in activism, and I can't give a straight answer on that because everyone's path is so incredibly different. But what I do say is that you need passion, you need knowledge, and you need purpose. And if you do everything that you want to do with purpose, nothing can stop you. But the purpose has to be bigger than yourself as well. I have come across people over the past couple of years that have wanted to do this and wanted to get involved in this space because they think it's a quick and easy path to notoriety, but what they soon learn is that it is long and it's painful and it's hard. When you put yourself out there, you open yourself up to the opinions of others, and sometimes those are not very nice opinions. But if you are confident in who you are and what you believe in, those people will not stop you. Which leads me to talking about the power of community, the power of spaces like the one we're in right now. You can't do activism on your own. It won't work. You need to make friends and you need to make connections. And you need people around you that are really going to support you in what you're doing. And I personally think that community can be fostered anywhere, whether it's locally, online, in a new space. In September of last year, I worked with UN Women UK to bring their pilot of their Safe Spaces Now scheme to a festival. We took a team of volunteers who were trained to be active bystanders to this festival, and they were there to walk women back to their tents at night, be a friendly face, and take note of sexual harassment, and so on. And at that festival, we created a sense of community. So many people came to us and said that they felt so much safer knowing we were there, and so many people just came to our tent to hang out because they knew that it was a place that they were safe. And so it doesn't matter where you are, you can always create community and connections through the work that you do. Whether the space is temporary or permanent, you can always bring something by being open and making it known the values that you hold. And I really hope that you guys can actually use today as an opportunity to talk to someone that you've never spoken to before. Who knows, you might actually discover the community project that you've been waiting for through someone in this room. There's no responsibility for you to start your own thing or to come up with the next big idea. Joining something that already exists is more than enough. I personally like to try and leave every new space that I enter with at least one new connection. And so I'm going to leave you with that challenge for today. Go out there and make one new connection. And I know you're probably really sick of hearing me talk, but I have come to the end of my talk. I think we're going to take some questions now, but thank you guys so much for listening to me and what I have to say. I really appreciate it.
Any questions?
Don't be scared, I promise, I'm kind.
Hi, India.
Hello.
I was wondering, if someone wanted to volunteer with the Speak Up space or get involved in some sort of way in support, how could they do that?
So you can volunteer with the Speak Up space. We take people that are creatives that could do graphic design. We take volunteers to be on the support team if you're interested in getting experience in supporting survivors. We also have social media volunteers, website volunteers. We take submissions if you want to submit a story or collaborate on a post. But if you don't want to volunteer and that feels like too much, just share what we do. Word of mouth is so important and so key, so that's also a way of just getting involved.
Hi. You spoke a bit about social media, and I know obviously you're a content creator. What would you say about the role of social media in activism and the sort of pros and cons of entering that sort of space?
So I think it's one of those things where it really is like a double-edged sword. I think there's so many benefits because it means that you can get information out to people quickly, you can organize really quickly, you can make so many connections really quickly, and that is so, so beneficial. And I have been able to do so much through social media, especially when we were in lockdown. It was key, I think, to so many people. But also, I think so many people sort of see social media as that's it. Okay, cool. I've shared a post. I can move on now. Great. When in reality, like I said, social media is there to be like a springboard for you. That's where you can find out about a new concept, and then you need to go and you need to research that further. And I think, yeah, a lot of people are like, oh, India, I follow you. And I'm like, okay, cool. What else do you do? And they're like, nothing. And I think so many people kind of get caught up in that, like, oh, if I'm just like following that person, it'll be so fine because I'm just learning all my information from them. But in reality, I am one person with like one set of opinions, and I can't be saying the opinions of everyone else. So yeah, you need to make sure that you're also reading, watching videos, and yeah.
So I'm very interested in activism around supporting survivors of sexual violence. One thing that I'm finding though is how hard it is to make a paid career out of it. And I know this is what I want to do for a living. I'm willing to put the work in. But it's just quite disheartening when the jobs I want to apply for, they're like 4 years experience, 3 years, a counselling degree. That isn't viable all the time.
Yeah.
So what is your advice for making a career out of this?
You say that like I get paid. So the Speak Up spaces, we're non-funded. We're all volunteers. We have no funding. I do all my work for free. We all do our work for free. What I get paid from is doing events like this and like getting paid experience. So I feel like I'm really not the best person to ask about that, which sucks. But volunteer with places initially and, do that work on the side, and then, you can build up to being an Ysabel or whatever it is you want to go into. But yeah, it's not great. I'm sorry to say, I can't give you like loads of hope there.
Hiya, have you thought about registering as a charity? Because that might,
Yeah.
I know it's hard.
We have thought about registering as a charity, and it's kind of one of those tough things because we have had so many conversations about registering as a charity, and for one reason or another, it's something that we have put off doing because I think there's so much rubbish that comes with being a charity, and I get quite suspicious of certain charities as well, and so I think we're also we don't want to end up being one of those people where it's this is actually just used for money laundering and tax avoidance. So yeah, it's a weird thing, and also doing a charity is really hard. We actually know nothing about corporate stuff. We're just here to be nice to people. So yeah. Is that it for questions?
I think that's our last question, but if you have questions, hold them. In about 10 minutes, we're having a panel with a few other people and India as well. So
you're going to be really sick of me. I'm sorry.
We're just gonna reshuffle the stage, and if you want to have a comfort break and come back in 10. See you soon.